Happy Friday, everyone. This is part 2 of our conversation, Singles in the Church.
Hey guys, we're back and we're continuing the conversation that we had on Wednesday about singles in the church.
Yes.
And we're just going to continue with the comments that we got regarding Dad's blog post.
Yes, I think there's a lot we can learn from these comments.
I agree. So we're going to dive right in. And our first comment says this. I think that once you've passed the age where being single is acceptable/normal, it's very difficult to find a niche in your church. Then she does go on to say, I'm a believer that you get out of the church what you put into it. When I didn't try to make friends or be involved, I didn't have friends in the church and wasn't involved. But I put some effort into it and found my place and my people.
You know, in all the comments we received, they showed such a good attitude.
They did.
I mean,
Definitely.
they all said, sometimes we feel alone, sometimes we feel overlooked. But they also said, we realize it's also partly our obligation to reach out to people and try to get to know people. And so they didn't put everything, they didn't put all the responsibility on married people to make them feel welcome.
Exactly.
And I thought that was wonderful.
Oh, me too. Me too. And I also think, she brings up a good point that it can be difficult to find your place in the church.
No doubt.
And that's something really to think about. And, how are we integrating singles into the church?
What are we doing to help them find their niche?
Right.
And I can see that once you pass your early 20s, it might be more difficult to find that niche.
Definitely. But I think we could also do a better job of integrating anyone from that age group in.
Sure.
Adults. I mean, they're adults, and they should be integrated in.
Exactly. One thing I picked up on, Susanna, in these responses is that I think there's a general idea or general belief that people tend to think that churches treat married people differently than they treat single people. That they may even try to, that they favor married people over single people. For example, let me read to you this story.
Okay.
A very interesting story. My son attended a church for 6 months, signing the visitors' cards and even asking for a visit. He never received a visit and had stated that church did not seem to welcome him. He was a Pepperdine graduate, about 24 years old. When we visited the church and he was with us, members gathered around this married couple with a son. What changed? He was now welcome. He did not hesitate to point out to one that he had been there for 6 months, every Sunday, and had not been welcomed. His question was, what changed? We talked to the minister about this, and he did make some effort, but by then our son was ready to move on. And then there's this comment from the same respondent. The church is set up in most places, I believe, for certain kinds of social norms. We do not do well with millennials, the extreme poor, divorced and alone men, and other life situations that make us uncomfortable. We want people to change and be like us. Jesus wanted people to change and be like him. We need to change our hearts on this.
Wow.
That's quite a comment.
That is quite a comment. Excellent comment.
So do you think that there are a lot of people who have that experience, that when they're single, they don't really feel welcomed? But if they're married, people go out of their way to make them feel welcome. Do you think that is a legitimate experience, one that's going on?
Yes, I do.
You do?
I do. No, that's my opinion. But I think from some personal experience, I would definitely agree with that. And even from having friends who have shared stories with me. We have a friend who, they recently got married, but she said, it's amazing how different I'm being treated now that I'm engaged. They're asking me to do more things in the church and be a part of things more. I was like, wow. That's crazy to me. And so I think he's right. I think married people are treated differently than single people.
I wonder why that is. Churches tend to favor married people over single people. Or maybe that's not true, but apparently some people think, some singles feel that way. that they don't receive as much of a welcome, or that they don't receive as much interest as those who are married. I just wonder why that's true.
I do too.
Do we think married people have more to offer, more to give than single people?
I don't know what it is.
Do we think married people are more responsible than single people? I mean, that can't be right. Just because you're married doesn't mean you're responsible.
Exactly.
Or that you have more gifts to offer the church.
Right.
So,
exactly.
I don't know.
But I think that's one that could go on, which we're not going to talk about. But that could go on too. Why do we feel like married couples with children are even favored over just couples that are married, young couples? And I almost feel like it's a ladder happening within the church. So I think it's very valid what he's saying, and I don't understand why that's the case.
Well, it's something we should listen to comments like this.
Definitely.
And pay attention to them and consider them.
Definitely.
Yeah. Here's another comment, Suze. It's closely related to what we just talked about. Okay. This is from a single young lady. I've accepted that there will be some things at church that I'm not involved in, or that are set up to cater to families or couples, and I don't mind mostly. Families are really important, and keeping them strong is huge. I like that balanced perspective. But now listen to this. But there are some times I feel a bit left out. Sometimes that I work very hard to get a lesson out of a sermon mostly directed at families, and sometimes I do feel left out. And that comment makes me think. We do hear sermons directed to families. How to have a better marriage.
A lot.
How to be a better parent. How many lessons do we hear on how to live the single life?
Yeah.
Listen to this comment from this same young lady. I don't know that I have ever heard someone in church in front of an entire crowd acknowledge that I was just as important to the church family as my married friends.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. Surely we should make everyone in the church feel as important and as valuable as anyone else.
Of course.
But it hurts me to hear that comment.
I was about to say, it makes me very sad to hear that someone is even thinking that or feeling that within the church.
Yeah, because a single person is just as valuable as a married person.
Definitely.
Of course.
Definitely.
I mean, we know that up here. But apparently, in some churches, we're not communicating that to our single adults.
Now, I think that she ends, I was reading over your shoulder, she ends, I think, with a great wrap-up paragraph to that.
Okay, well, here it is.
I think you should share it.
All right. Be aware of the singles in your church. Amen. Make sure they know how valuable and needed they are in the work the church is doing. Make sure they are welcome in your married circles as friends and not as people you want to hook up with someone else. Be okay with being an odd-numbered group. That's good.
Interesting.
That's good.
Yes and yes. We also got a comment from someone who mentioned things that maybe we shouldn't say or do with singles. And I want to read this because I think it's really good.
Yeah.
She said, I want to say something helpful here because it is tempting just to list the please don'ts. Please don't say and do things that imply that my life is easy because I'm not up half the night with a baby. I have struggles in my heart and life that are just as real. Please don't say from the pulpit that your sermon about how wives should respect their husbands is also applicable to my life. Sure, it might contain some wisdom, good for any relationship or for some vague hope in my future, but it is far more likely to be lonely, heartbreaking, or just mystified for someone completely outside of that life experience.
You know what I hear there is that we just need to be more sensitive to everyone. I mean, when, for example, someone stands to preach a sermon for married couples, be sensitive to the fact that there are single people in the audience.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
That's a good list.
It is a good list. I like that. I think this person had a lot of great comments, and I wish I could read her entire everything that she wrote. But towards the end, I think this is really neat. She said, I think the most useful thing that I could say is this. Keep asking the questions. I especially like the ones about singles and leadership. If any portion of a church community has a voice in leadership, that is always a step in the direction of making sure that they don't get overlooked. Work on inspiring everyone to grow into the things that God has called us to, singles included.
That's a very good comment.
Very good comment.
You know, there's no doubt that we need to do more to incorporate singles into ministry.
Yes.
And I would affirm what this single has said. We also need to incorporate them into leadership.
Yes.
I mean, how many singles do we ask to be leaders of ministries, for example?
Not many.
I mean, we tend to leave those for married men and women.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that comment, that we need to be more sensitive to singles, and that we need to work harder to incorporate everyone
Yes,
into ministry.
definitely.
But to incorporate them in leadership, I think that's a fine comment.
I agree. Something that I think we should really work on.
Yes.
And you know, Dad, one thing I really appreciate about all these comments is that there isn't an attitude of entitlement in any of these comments. I
Yeah.
mean, these are just genuine responses from the heart, and I really appreciate that.
That impressed me too. These were singles. These responses were from singles who realized that they were not entitled to special favors, who also realized that they had responsibilities on their own to reach out to people and to feel a part
Yes.
of the community.
Yes.
But they are also responses of people who are longing for community and who want to be included. And I just thought they were very good responses.
I agree. I agree. Thanks again for sending in your comments.
Yes.
And for discussing this topic with us. If you have any other questions or want to talk further about this topic, please feel free to contact us. Email Dad. We'll, put his email at the bottom of this video, and catch up on the post that he wrote if you didn't read
Yes.
that. So.
And thank you for your interest in these matters.
These are important interests.
They are very
Very
important.
important. You guys have a good weekend.
God bless you.